introduction. It's a great pleasure to be here, coming back to University of Sydney. So today I'm going to share with you my own journey coming from the graduate to working in the tech industry in the past 7 years. So when I first graduated as a computer science graduate, I thought my career would be very simple. So just from a software engineer to a senior software engineer and potentially a manager. But over time, I realized it didn't turn out that way. There were actually so many different career pathways in tech that I didn't know of. And that's why I'm here with you today, to share with you what are some diverse pathways available in the tech industry. And I hope after this lecture, you'll be able to get some insights about what kind of pathways that you can go and eventually build your own career. So here's the agenda for today. We're going to start with explaining some of the IT career pathways, and then moving to graduate program. So you may have heard of graduate program. What I want to share with you today is the actual timeline about graduate program hiring, so you can make the most out of applying for graduate jobs. Moving forward, I'll share some insights in terms of how to write a good resume that will make you stand out on the application. And then some insights that I've gained throughout the years about the harsh truths in the Australia job market. And then we'll move to some typical IT job offer components. So in addition to salary and super, there are actually some interesting compensation components that I didn't know about before entering into tech, and I want to share with you today. And lastly, some career development insight that I've gained throughout the years. All right, let's dive into it. So before we talk about what pathways are available, I first want to share with you the IT ecosystem. I think this is very, very important before we dive into the career pathways, because I think we all know companies like Atlassian and Canva, right? But there are many other companies in this ecosystem that has a lot of job opportunities that not many people know about. So it starts from the top layer, the companies who build the software, which are well known, like Atlassian, Workday, and Salesforce, were called vendor. And then we also have those companies who consume those software, like the big companies, Commonwealth Bank, Qantas, and Medibank in Australia. Those are the local companies who consume the software. So what's in between? Say you are the Commonwealth Bank and you want to purchase Workday, the software, but you also have your own recruitment system inside the company, and you want to build a custom Workday application that actually integrates in your system. So how do you do that? This is when you need consultancies company like Accenture, FDM, Deloitte. Those companies customizes software for the consumers. So this is where you'll see a lot of the consulting graduate jobs where they come from. And a lot of people will specialize on specific software like Workday, and they will have certifications throughout their career, and then move from solution consultant and eventually to solution architect. They get back to the course. In addition to that, there is also the system integrators. So take Commonwealth Bank as an example again. You may have Workday as your HR software, but you may also have Atlassian like Jira, who you use as a project management tool. And you want to integrate both software into your own system. And guess what the software runs under? You need to have hardware for the software to run. And sometimes you even need to have data center because you have a lot of data to store. And that's where the system integrators come in, like HP, IBM.com, and more. So those companies will also have consultancy roles or other roles like system administrator or other engineering roles where they help consumer companies to integrate different systems. And they will also have consultant, then solution architect, that kind of career path. So if you see a lot of career paths like software engineer, consultants, or BA, a lot of different career paths are available, but they are actually lying on different parts of the ecosystem. So this is just like a really high-level overview of what the ecosystem looks like. And then now we know what this ecosystem looks like, we can talk more about what career pathways are available. For those well-known brands, as we all know, Atlassian, Canva, those companies, in addition to software engineering, there are so many different roles out there. And that's what I'm going to share with you. So this may be a bit small, but after the lecture, we'll share a slide with you. So just gonna focus on the whole architecture to start with. Say it is a software company, and there are typically three key business groups. So the software company, because they are making software, the most important or the highest priority business group is the research and development business group. And this is where your typical software engineer roles come from. But in addition to that, they also need to sell the software to the consumers, right? So that is where the go-to-market business comes from. And that's actually where I started my first job. So I started my first job here as a technical consultant at VMware. And that is part of the post-sales group that actually not many people heard about. In addition to that, you have the supporting function. So that's supporting how the business operates. You have HR, you have legal, and you also have IT. So a lot of the traditional IT jobs, like the IT support, system admin, those types of roles fall under the supporting IT group. So I just want to dive a little bit deeper into the go-to-market section. So typical sales cycle looks like this. Say if I'm the customer, I will go into an industry event. That's when I'll meet the marketing people in the vendor. And then once I leave my contact detail with the marketing member, soon after, a business development representative will reach out to me to understand my requirements. And then this is where a lot of different roles come in. To be able to understand my requirement, usually there will be a pre-sales or solution engineer who will build a demo of that software for me to understand how I can integrate my business with the software I want to purchase. So this is a non-traditional IT role, requires some sort of technical understanding of the software, but not as highly technical. But then once I purchase the software, maybe I want to customize it, then this is where the consultant, the post-sales part comes in. So you have a group of consultants and a project manager who actually helps you customize the software to the requirement that you want. You need some specializations. Sometimes you need to get some certifications to understand or prove that you are authorized or you have the authority to use and build the software. And you need to be a little bit technical. So that kind of consulting job we call technical consultant is actually not the type of role you just go in and speak about strategy and the beautiful words and then you just sell something. No, you actually need to actually implement the solution, sometimes even some coding as well. And then you may come to some issues with how to use the software, and that is where the support engineer comes from. So the support engineer actually needs to be highly specialized, highly technical. So when I say technical, I don't mean you need to code. I mean you need to be very specialized and understand the nitty-gritty of how to use a specific software. So coming last is the customer success manager. It's a really pretty name without a lot of understanding of what it actually means. So say I have a software like Workday, and I only use one feature to recruit new talent. As a Workday sales manager, I want to sell you more features, right? But how do I do that? I will have a customer success manager who works with you on a day-to-day basis to understand how your business operates so that I can see the upsell opportunities when it's there. So this is actually a more sales-like role, but you still need to have some level of understanding of the product so you're able to identify the opportunities. And because some of these roles, like the pre-sales engineers and customer success manager, they actually bring in the revenue for the business. So their compensation is designed for that as well. So that's when I have here, I have commission-based compensation. So depending on the revenue you bring in, there might be a percentage of that you can take home as your income. But for those ones who don't directly bring in the revenue, whose scopes are already set when they start work, like consultant, support engineer, their compensation is actually bonus-based. So if the team performs well, then they will get a percentage of that to their income. And usually that is tiered by the level they have in the company. I'll go into that a bit later. So just a really general overview of what types of roles are available in the go-to-market business school. So I just want to highlight that for the research and development business school, it is very common for the US tech giants you have heard about, like Salesforce and Adobe, to have that in US, China, or India, not in Australia. But for go-to-market, it's different because they don't have to sell to Australian customers. So if you look up on their career website, you will see a lot of these roles available there. So just some information about what types of roles are available. And then just a little bit of touch on research and development. This is, you're probably familiar with this. This is actually highly correlated to the product development lifecycle. So for each section in the lifecycle, there is a corresponding role for it. So for scoping, for example, you need a business analyst who can read the business data and interpret it for what are the requirements that a product team will need to develop. And then you have the designer who actually design the product user interface, and then the software engineer, the test engineer, and the release engineer. In addition to that, there is also one section here that not many people know about. This is called the operations or platform team. So all the software they need to run on the platform. And sometimes things may be overlooked, but they are actually highly skilled and needed in the industry, like infrastructure engineer or DevOps, the other term you may have heard of. So now that you understand a little bit more about the IT industry in general, let's look at what you will need for applying for a job, the graduate program. So before I start, who has heard of a graduate program before? Okay, a couple of you. Okay, so just to explain graduate program a little bit before I go into the detail. So this is not a typical role that you apply and then you start working on a job. Graduate program usually is for the graduates from universities where the companies will provide training, sometimes 3 months, 6 months, or even 1 year training before the graduate will actually perform a revenue generated or a more highly skilled job. So this is a really good opportunity for graduates because you often don't have experiences, and this provides you a platform for training, upskill, and very importantly, your network. So I joined VMware in 2018 as part of the graduate program, and that is actually the people who started with me. Still today, they are very good network for me. For example, a lot of people who started with me, we all started as consultants, But some people will move to pre-sales engineering. Some people will move to customer success. Some people will actually move to product. So you have a diverse network of people who can become very valuable for your career in the future. And that is a really powerful thing about graduate program. But because it is so powerful, it is also very competitive. So here I want to share with you, as a graduate program manager, what I know about the program and what are some opportunities that you can leverage. So starting from the recruitment side, a lot of you will know applications actually start from March when you start your semester one. This is a typical flow for the graduate program hiring. But it doesn't mean that the companies already have the roles available at that time. They just want to compete with everyone else. So a lot of companies, they put out what we call the evergreen rack just to receive applications. And that is also why you may be ghosted for the next 2 months. It's just because the roles are not actually available yet for some companies. So then in between, you may receive HR phone calls, you may receive online tests for those really big companies, and you may receive some video interviews. And you will find that some roles actually open their application again during the second semester. And that is when the actual competition begins. And during September and October is where the actual interviews will start. So just want to break down into some common components you'll see in a graduate interview. So the first one is group interview. So basically you're a group with a team of 3 to 5 people, and you're tasked to do a group project. It can be some research or some presentations, so basically some group work. And there will be a bunch of judges in the same room will look at you, how you communicate and how you present. They'll assess you on how you communicate with your peers and if you stand out or not. And then another type of interview is panel interview. That means you are facing against 2 to 3 judges. So that usually means that in addition to your direct hiring manager, there are some other people that you'll work with in the role. Say, for example, I'm a consultant, I need to work with a project manager. So in that panel, there will be project managers who interview you as well. And lastly is a one-on-one interview. So usually that means you're interviewing with your hiring manager directly. And then comes to November and December, it's the offer time. But that's not the end, because some applicants may actually turn down offer at that time. It means in January and February, just before the program starts, there may be some additional headcount opens. And that is when the hiring timeline, the process will be a lot shorter compared to the September and October time, because they want to fill the rack very quickly. So this is an opportunity that you can leverage as well. So that's just about a really general overview for the graduate program timeline. Then say you want to apply for a job now, then the first thing you need is a resume. So I know a lot of people actually come from a different cultural background. So I want to share a typical resume layout that I personally use for the China job market. So first thing, you have the contact details, sometimes the LinkedIn profile link, and you have your location. But you don't have to put in the actual address that you live, just a rough location. And then there's a very, very important part is the summary. I've seen so many resumes without a summary, and I tell you, you may get missed by the recruiter, because summary is like a mini cover letter. You need to summarize all your strengths and your goal and who you are in 3 to 5 sentences. And usually recruiters only have 3 to 5 seconds to read a resume, and this is on the top of a resume. So customizing this for different jobs are very important. Not saying you have to completely rewrite for every job, but it's good to know that you take this part of your resume seriously. And then coming to the work and project experiences. So typically you'll write your employment history here, but if you don't have any work experience, you can also put your internship experience or your capstone projects here. And then I will have my skills section. So this part is, I have to say, it's different for different roles. Because I work as a product manager now, transferable skills are more important than technical skills. So I will spend a lot of time actually describing what my skills are. But for engineers, for example, sometimes you just need to write the specific tool that you use. And then you have the education and certification section. And lastly, the reference. So for reference, you don't have to put down the reference contact details on your resume. You can just say reference available on request. But it is important that you notify your reference when you submit the job application, so it's not a surprise when they get a call. And I just want to highlight, do not copy my resume layout in this order, because they should be tailored to your current situation. So when I graduated, I have education on top, just right below my summary. But because I graduated for how many years now, education is not important anymore. That's why I put it at the bottom. So depending on what your current stage is and what is important for the recruiter, you need to make your information stand out in that way. So this is a reference, but do not just copy that. Alright. Some common mistakes I've seen in the past when people write resume. The first thing is, do not include your photo. This is especially important when you apply for professional jobs like software engineering. And then you don't need to have other irrelevant information like your birthday, your height, and your weight. Those will be considered noise for the recruiters. And you can have your hobby listed on your resume, but do not emphasize it. So what I mean is, for example, if you want to apply for a role in the trading company and you put extreme sport as your hobby, you may get to small talk with the hiring manager very quickly during the interview. But then that is because the hobby is something that is correlates to the role you're applying for. So do not just randomly put all your hobby on your resume. So again, this is the same philosophy as before. Put the most important information for the recruiters. Do not put anything that may be considered as noise. And then for readability reason, do not write long paragraphs. And the next thing is, do not write general or generic tasks. So this one is very hard actually. So you may say, I've completed 7 tickets per day as a software engineer. It is something very common, but it is not something important. So the recruiters want to see the results and the impact as a software engineer, what you can bring to the company. But if you say something like, I support administrative tasks, this is like everyone can write that. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't make you stand out from competitors. So make sure you do write impact stats. What you actually do is important for you to understand, but not important for the recruiter. The result is. And then don't write English as a skill. So you are already writing an English resume. So it is assumed that you can speak English. So do not write that as a skill. So it just makes it feel like English is not your second language, which is true. But again, it's a noise for the recruiter. So don't write that. You may ask me, okay, but I speak Mandarin or I speak other languages. Should I put that in the resume? It depends. If in the job ad it actually has Mandarin is preferred, Mandarin is a plus, then you'll write that in your resume. But if not, again, it's a noise, don't write. The next one is do not write GPA. So what I mean by that is in Australia, the grading system is more well known as the WEN system. So I understand GPA is commonly used in US, but in Australia, I would suggest use WEN instead because a lot of the hiring managers, they don't really understand GPA. And do not write your visa status. So again, this is something you will be asked during the interview phase, but you don't have to put that in the resume. And lastly, do not mix UK, US field like favorite, OR, OUR. These are like little things, but it's good to have them checked before you submit a resume. Okay, so it comes to the very important part of resume writing. Experience is the highest priority. Grades are less important. So I understand you may want to highlight your grade, and it is very useful for graduate program because you are all competing with a lot of experiences. But if you do have experiences, make sure you put them on top because this is what the recruiters want to see. Okay, so say, for example, you submitted your resume, gone through all the interviews, and now you have a job offer. The reason why I want to share this is because before I joined the tech industry, what I knew was job compensation is your base salary and your super, and that's it. But it's not. There are actually a lot of other components that may come into hand when you accept an offer. So I just want to share this with you. So the first thing is called ESPP. So it stands for Employee Stock Purchase Plan. So you typically see this